Okay, so we've basically heard yesterday about the Mexican ecosystem, about money coming into Mexico, about how this is the time for Mexicans to really shine. And I wanted to try to put it all together and show you really how deep the ecosystem goes, how deep the rabbit hole truly is, so to speak. So the first thing I want to talk about is what I believe sparked everything. And these are the government programs that were basically what I believe started this revolution, if you will, in Mexico. So these are the initiatives. This is sort of like a timeline of initiatives in Mexico. You have first, in 2003, it started with the Programa Avance by CONACYT. CONACYT is the National Council of Science and Technology. And basically what they did is they started this grant program in Mexico. It was actually, to be honest with you, very bad in the beginning. By the way, just a quick disclosure, this is all my idea. These are my opinions, and I take full responsibility for what I'm going to say here. This is not Wayra, this is not Telefonica. The program Avance, for example, was grant support system for entrepreneurs, and one of the basic requirements that they had initially was that you had to have a company with 2 years in the black before they gave you the money, which kind of made it irrelevant. But they changed in time, and eventually it became a program that actually fostered entrepreneurship and fostered innovation. The second thing that happened in Mexico was the Fondo Emprendedores. Fondo Emprendedores was done by NAFIN, Mexico's development bank. And I believe this is actually the first real venture capital effort in Mexico. I was fortunate enough to have one of the first companies that got an investment from this fund. And it was, very easy terms for the company, and it funded a lot of the initial internet and telecommunication startups in Mexico. Next came ProSoft. ProSoft is a program by the Ministry of Economy in Mexico, and the idea is to foster software development in Mexico. And that's a program that's been ongoing for a while, and that's helped a lot. Then came TECBA, and again, this is my opinion, but now, TECBA has a lot of detractors, and to be honest with you, TECBA is the Technology Business Accelerator from the Mexican government. So they started in Silicon Valley, and I think the idea was genius, because the idea was to expose Mexican entrepreneurs to the Silicon Valley ambience and to the Silicon Valley environment, and expose their companies to Silicon Valley investors. The idea was excellent, the execution not so much. Just to give you an idea, initially TECBA's idea of networking in Silicon Valley was networking with Hispanics, which kind of missed the point of getting to the environment of Silicon Valley. However, it did instill in some of us, and I'm speaking from experience, the idea that we are as good as Silicon Valley entrepreneurs, and that we can actually compete. 2006 came the new regime to create Mexican companies in Mexico. It's called the SAPI, and we've heard a little bit about it yesterday in the panel with Sergio Legorreta. And I'm going to talk about why the SAPI is important in the next slide, so I'm going to skip it now. Then came the Fondo Pyme, which helped entrepreneurs and gave money for entrepreneurs in all areas, not just technology. ProSoft 2.0 started in 2008, which was an improved version of the software grant program. Between 2009 and 2010, Congress approved to double the grants for entrepreneurship and innovation in Mexico, which actually sparked a few more initiatives. And 2011, you've heard yesterday about the Fund of Funds for Venture Capital, that's Mexico Ventures. There was a fund of funds before, in 2005, but I don't think it's relevant for entrepreneurship because it was more geared towards private equity. And that private equity was more geared towards real estate and more tangible things than telecommunications and entrepreneurship. 2011 also was the year that they finalized the National Innovation Program, which is a nice framework, and it's something that we need to work on about how to foster innovation, specifically disruptive innovation in Mexico, which is a thing that we are still missing. And finally, a couple of months ago, the Fund of Funds for Seed Capital was created. Again, the idea is to incentivize the creation of seed funds. And the last thing that happened was about a month and a half ago, or 2 months, the Capital Emprendedor platform was born, which is NAFIN's attempt to gather the whole ecosystem in one place. So that should give you an idea of what, in my opinion, are the things that sparked everything that you're seeing today. So that's on the political side. And I believe that at the end of the day, that's truly the first support that innovators and entrepreneurs have in Mexico. So let's talk a little bit about the SAPI. I mean, they discussed it yesterday, and I'm no lawyer, and I'm sure I'm going to get corrected if there's some here. But there was a new equity market law that came about with this new vehicle for entrepreneurship. So why is the SAPI different than any other companies? I see basically 4 main differences. The first one is that companies now have a better protection, better minority protection for their shareholders. So, which basically means that with less percentage of the company, you can actually get rights that you used to get with more protection. So, for example, in order to get a board seat, before in Mexico you needed 25% of the company. Now you only need 10%. In order to appoint an auditor, as we call in Mexico, a comisario, an internal auditor, you needed 25%. Now you need 10%. So basically it changed the rules a little bit and made it a little easier to have a little more control with less. The second big change that happened was improved shareholder rights. So believe it or not, it was very complicated in Mexico to actually have non-compete agreements among shareholders, or to buy and sell shares among shareholders. Or, for example, creating a stockholder agreement had to be included in the bylaws, and now it can be separate. So I think that's a very important change in this new type of company in Mexico. Third, you have different types of shares. Now, I know, especially for you living in the US, this makes all the sense in the world, but in Mexico it was very difficult to get voting and non-voting shares, or voting shares without dividends. So now there's a lot more flexibility in how to create these companies. And finally, and I think this is one of the most important parts of this new type of company, is that the company can actually acquire its own shares. And this means that basically you can carve out a piece of the company, put it in the treasury, and be able to generate, for example, an employee stock option plan, which before it was very complicated. So that's the SAPI, and that's what's going on the legal side of Mexico. Now, we've talked about the incubators. Everybody said that, you know, there's 500 incubators that were created in Mexico. I believe yesterday it was said that university incubators are dead. I tend to agree with this. I don't think that the incubators in Mexico have generated any success stories or have generated any successful companies, but they have done one thing that I think is crucial. They have instilled in students the idea that they can create a company. And this is very important, and I'll tie it in with the next slide, but I think this is, again, a cultural change that's very important in Mexico. The other thing that's happening in Mexico is that you have a lot of industry participants fostering entrepreneurship. They're doing this through rewards, through grants, through awards and contests. So you have international companies such as, say, Dell or Intel or IBM, of course, Telefonica. You have Mexican banks. You have ministries of economy, or the Ministry of Education in Mexico. You have media like Expansión, who have their own award. You even have smaller companies like Naranja. My friend Arturo Galvan just had a month ago the Naranja Challenge. And this is all creating an ambience where entrepreneurs want to start a business, they want to compete, and they want to try their luck. And also, you have a bunch of awards and contests that are coming from outside of Mexico or are being generated in Mexico by entities, not necessarily corporations. So, for example, you've heard yesterday also that for the first time, I think Robin mentioned it, for the first time, Mexico participated in TechCrunch. TechCrunch Disrupt actually had a Latin American contest, and that was very big, and that was, it sounded a lot in Mexico. The Next Web came to Mexico. You have the Clean Tech Challenge. You have stuff like Campus Party or Wayra or TechBand that generates contests among entrepreneurs. So you have a plethora of contests and entrepreneur awards that we didn't have before. And finally, on the culture side, there's networking events. And I consider this crucial. This is one of the things that makes the Silicon Valley what it is. And in Mexico, we didn't have any gatherings amongst entrepreneurs. I'm putting Endeavor first because I think that Endeavor was actually the one that started it all. It became the first entrepreneur network in Mexico, but now you have Startup Buzz, Startup Drinks, Startup Nights, Startup Weekend. You have, again, a plethora of programs and gatherings and parties amongst entrepreneurs where they meet and discuss the next big thing in Mexico. So all of this is generating a positive spiral that I think is growing and is definitely changing the way Mexicans view the culture and Mexicans view entrepreneurship in general. On the education side, universities, the number of universities have doubled in Mexico in the past 10 years. Specifically, if we look, for example, at engineers, Mexico is producing more engineers than many of the developed countries. So to put it into perspective, the population growth in Mexico is 1.3%, and the engineer growth in Mexico is 7%. However, there's no jobs for these engineers. And because of the culture change in Mexico, I think that now they're understanding that their options are not to be unemployed or subemployed. Now they're understanding that they can actually create their own companies. So in essence, you have more skilled workers and you have less jobs. And to me, that's a perfect recipe, a perfect storm, if you will, for entrepreneurship. So that's on the talent side. So I want to take you a little bit around what's being said about Mexico, because I think this is also very important. This was said by CNBC. Mexico has such a solid macroeconomic context that Mexico is the fastest growing country according to the MSCI index, surpassing the US, Singapore, and Sweden. The World Bank says that Mexico is the best place in Latin America to do business in. It also says that it is faster to open a business in Mexico than in any of the BRIC countries. Mexico has consolidated its position as the fourth largest IT service provider in the world. Now third, from what we heard from Lorenza yesterday, I think we passed China. Mexico embraced a great American export entrepreneurial spirit. This was said by the Washington Post this month. Mexico was the country that reported the highest internet growth usage in 2011. Venture capitalists look to Mexico and Latin America. Mexico is the best destination in America to establish an IT business. Mexico poised for growth. Innovation is high on the agenda, according to Ernst & Young. And last but not least, Mexico City is one of the top 10 entrepreneurial cities worldwide. This was said by Tom Kosnick of Stanford Technology Venture Partners in his visit to Mexico a couple of weeks ago, where he visited the Tech of Monterrey in Santa Fe, and he stayed over a week and a half. And he showed us his slides at the end, where he has a ranking into which, in his opinion, which are the most entrepreneurial cities in the world. Mexico was 26th when he arrived. We were bumped up to number 6 after he left. So that's actually really good. And I had nothing to do with it, I know. So Mexico now is enjoying an amazing buzz outside of Mexico that we did not enjoy before. And I think, again, this can only contribute. And finally, you've heard about the government program. So this is a chart that NAFIN uses to show that we have programs that run from developing the skills of students in universities all the way through commercial expansion of a company. So that's the government support. We have international organizations like the World Bank, like the International Monetary Fund, like the Inter-American Development Bank that are helping and aiding the government in creating these programs. I knew that would wake you up, Roberto. We have, funds are being created in Mexico. This is a chart of funds, not just Mexican funds in the bottom, but also outside funds, mostly US, that are coming into Mexico. I personally had interviews with a couple of these funds. Founders Fund came to Wayra, Acción came to Wayra. This is something that we did not have before. So there is interest. This is a chart from LAVCA. I didn't know it was going to be after Ariel, but basically the funds in Mexico have grown from 2 to 14 in the last 4 years. And this is the venture capital investment growth in Mexico. So it doubled from 2010 to 2011, and it's expected to double again in 2012. So it seems to me that there is money in Mexico and that venture capital is taking off. So when you look at it all, and this is what's being generated, an explosion of entrepreneurship. Just in Wayra alone, we have seen over 1,000 projects in the last year. So it's amazing to me as an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur in the last 18 years, and it's amazing to me that this is happening. I've never seen so many entrepreneurs, being born simultaneously. And these, by the way, these are mostly companies that have been created in the past couple of years. So this is the ecosystem as a whole, and this can give you a very good idea about what we've been talking about yesterday. Consider a recap, if you will. I just want to show you where the money for startups is today. So I believe we're saturated with grants and entrepreneurship awards, which is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. And I believe that we have enough college incubators. But I believe that the real area of opportunity is here. I believe that the real area of opportunity is in the business incubation, in the acceleration, and the seed capital. And as the industry matures, I think that this will move to the right, and the opportunity will move to the right as well. And finally, I just wanted to show you this. I believe that Mexico is changing today. We're at an inflection point right now where we're changing from an efficiency-based economy to an innovation-based economy. And I think that this change is going to bring about very big opportunities for investors, huge opportunities for entrepreneurs, and a great opportunity for Mexicans in general. And I just want to leave you with one of my favorite phrases, which I think encompasses not just the moment where Mexico's at, but also what entrepreneurship is about. And it's a phrase from Victor Hugo that says, "There's nothing more powerful than an idea whose time has come." And I believe that the time has come for Mexico to stop being a maquiladora country, to stop exporting cheap labor, to start generating innovation, to start becoming a competitive country, and to start truly realizing the potential that the country has. Thank you.